The scream of a ragged man on the street stopped me colder than winter wind. "Don't get in that car. Your sister-in-law wants you buried before the will is read." I was on my way to claim my late father's $229 million fortune. But instead of joy, I felt terror running through my veins. Why would a homeless man know about my sister-in-law's schemes? And why did his warning feel so true? By the end of that day, I would watch her collapse in front of everyone as her perfect mask cracked wide open. My father's death had been quiet, dignified. A man of discipline until his last breath, he left behind not just money but a long shadow. For most of my life, I had lived in it. I was his eldest daughter, but somehow invisible, until now. The inheritance meeting was scheduled for the afternoon, and the entire family was supposed to be there. Brothers, cousins, in-laws. Vultures in expensive clothing, waiting to feast. I had dressed simply. A navy coat, a silk scarf my mother had left me. My hands trembled as I locked my apartment door. This wasn't just about money, this was about finally being seen. The driver pulled up in a black car. He nodded, already opening the back door for me. That's when the homeless man appeared, shouting like an oracle on the sidewalk. His beard was tangled, his clothes torn, but his eyes pierced through me. "Don't get in," he yelled again, stumbling toward me. "Your sister-in-law wants your grave dug next to your father's." The driver cursed and waved him off. People passing by laughed, shaking their heads. To them, he was just another lunatic. But I stood frozen, my foot hovering before the car door. Because deep down, I knew exactly which sister-in-law he meant. Angela. My brother Michael's wife. Elegant, venomous, with a smile so polished it could slice glass. She had always treated me like an inconvenience, the older sister without children, without sparkle, without a voice. For years I swallowed her insults at family dinners, her digs at my small life. And now? Now she wanted me gone. The driver grumbled. "Ma'am, we need to leave. We'll be late." I forced myself to move, slipping inside. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear the city traffic. Was it paranoia? Or had that man just ripped the mask off a truth I had ignored for too long? The ride stretched on in silence. My thoughts clawed at me. Angela had money, beauty, status. Why would she need more? But then I remembered her husband, my brother Michael, always drowning in debts. Gambling, failed businesses, shady friends. Without father's fortune, they would sink. And Angela? She didn't know how to sink. She only knew how to climb, on anyone's back. As the car turned onto the street of the lawyer's office, I whispered a prayer under my breath. Not just for safety, but for strength. I had spent too many years shrinking into corners. Today, I would not. The meeting room looked like a stage. Long polished table, leather chairs, a chandelier that hummed faintly. And there they were, my family, gathered like actors before the curtain rose. Michael sat beside Angela. She wore a pearl dress, hair perfectly arranged, lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. When she spotted me, her smile tightened. "Well," she said sweetly, "look who decided to show up. We thought maybe you'd gotten lost." My blood burned. The homeless man's warning echoed in my ears. "I'm here," I said simply, taking my seat. The lawyer, an older man with papers stacked before him, cleared his throat. "We'll begin shortly. I trust everyone is ready." But Angela wasn't looking at the lawyer. She was staring at me. Calculating. Measuring. As if she knew something I didn't. Have you ever faced something like this in your own family, where the mask of love hid something poisonous? If this story touches you, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe so more women can find strength through stories like this. The reading began. Father's voice seemed to echo through the lawyer's words. To my daughter, the one who never left my side in quiet years, my throat tightened. Finally, he was speaking to me, even from the grave. But Angela shifted in her chair, restless. She glanced at Michael, then back at me. Her hand trembled slightly as she lifted her glass of water. And that's when it happened. The moment that would unravel everything. Angela suddenly gasped, eyes wide. Her face drained of color. She swayed, clutching her chest as if invisible hands were squeezing the life from her. Gasps filled the room. My brother leapt up, shouting her name. Papers scattered. The lawyer froze mid-sentence. Angela collapsed against the table. And in that chaos, something slipped from her purse, something that would change everything about the inheritance, the fortune, and the truth behind the homeless man's warning. Angela's pearl necklace snapped against the table as she collapsed, beads scattering like frozen raindrops across the polished wood. Everyone rushed toward her, voices tumbling over each other. Angela. Speak to me. Michael shouted, shaking her shoulders. The lawyer hesitated, torn between duty and concern. Someone call an ambulance. But my eyes weren't on Angela's pale face. They were on the object that had slipped from her purse and landed right at my feet. A folded envelope, worn at the edges, but sealed carefully. My name was scrawled across it, in my father's handwriting. The air seemed to vanish from the room. My father had left me a personal letter, and Angela had been carrying it in her purse. Why? I bent down, my hand trembling, and picked it up. Everyone was too distracted with Angela to notice. My heart pounded in my ears. Move. Give her air. Michael shouted, fanning his wife with a handkerchief. Angela moaned faintly, her eyelids fluttering open. She placed a hand dramatically on her forehead, as if she were the star of a silent movie. Water, she whispered. Michael grabbed a glass and pressed it to her lips. She took a slow sip, then looked up, straight at me. And she saw the envelope in my hand. Her eyes widened in horror. For the first time, the mask cracked. Not fear of fainting. Fear of being exposed. I slipped the envelope into my coat pocket, saying nothing. Angela quickly sat upright, her performance over. I must have skipped breakfast. Low blood sugar, she muttered, forcing a laugh. I'm fine, really. But the room wasn't convinced. The cousins whispered. Even Michael looked uneasy. The lawyer cleared his throat. Shall we continue? Angela smoothed her dress, reclaiming her poise. Yes. Please. But I could feel her gaze drilling into me, sharp as a blade. She knew what I had, and she wanted it back. The reading resumed, but I barely heard the words. My fingers pressed against the envelope hidden in my pocket. What truth did my father leave me? And why had Angela tried to keep it from me? Each sentence the lawyer read out felt distant, muffled, like voices underwater. Father's estate was vast, properties, businesses, accounts. The number everyone whispered about was $229 million. Enough to ruin or save anyone in that room. Michael grinned when the lawyer mentioned his name. My cousins sighed in disappointment when their portions were smaller than expected. But I sat still, my mind racing. Angela's hand tightened around Michael's. Her nails dug into his skin, but his attention was on the figures, the numbers. He didn't see her silent panic. I did. When the session ended, polite applause and murmurs filled the air. Papers shuffled, chairs scraped back. Everyone was busy calculating, already spending money they didn't yet have. Angela, however, moved like a predator. She floated toward me, smile plastered on, pearls missing but posture intact. Darling, she said softly, touching my arm. May we speak alone? Her tone dripped honey, but her eyes were knives. I forced a smile. Of course. We stepped into the hallway, away from curious ears. Angela's mask slipped instantly. You took something from my purse. I pretended confusion. What are you talking about? She leaned closer, her perfume suffocating. Don't play dumb with me. That envelope. It wasn't meant for you. My blood boiled. My father wrote my name on it. Her lips curled. Do you think he still cared about you at the end? Please. He trusted me. He gave me things to handle. That letter was nothing important. Her voice trembled on that last word. She was lying. I stepped back, my voice steady. If it's nothing, then you won't mind if I read it. Angela's composure cracked. For a second, her eyes flashed with raw panic. Then, like a magician, she pulled the mask back on. You're tired, she said sweetly. Grief plays tricks. Why don't you let me keep it safe? You can trust me. The audacity nearly made me laugh. Trust her? The woman who'd humiliated me at every family gathering, who sneered at my clothes, my choices, my quiet life? I slipped my hand into my coat pocket, feeling the envelope like a secret flame. No, Angela. I think I'll keep it. Her smile vanished. For the first time, she looked at me as if I were an obstacle she couldn't charm away. We returned to the room. Michael approached, concern painted on his face. Everything all right? Angela slipped her hand through his arm, her expression back to innocent perfection. Of course, darling. Just a little misunderstanding. But I saw her jaw tighten. The cousins began leaving, whispering among themselves. The lawyer gathered his documents. The meeting was over, but the war had just begun. That night, I sat in my kitchen, the letter before me. The same kitchen where I had cried alone so many nights, where Angela's cruel words replayed in my head. The kettle whistled, but I didn't move. My hand hovered above the paper, afraid and desperate all at once. Finally, I broke the seal. My father's handwriting sprawled across the page. Shaky, but clear. My daughter, if you are reading this, it means the others have tried to keep the truth from you. Do not trust those closest to Michael. There are debts, dark ones, and Angela is not who she pretends to be. I fear she will do anything to secure this fortune. Protect yourself. And remember, the fortune is not the only thing I left for you. There is something hidden. You will know it when you see it. I dropped the letter, my heart slamming against my ribs. He knew. He had seen through her all along. And there was something else, something hidden. I pressed my hand to my chest, the air heavy with dread and determination. Angela wasn't just cruel. She was dangerous. And now, I had proof. The phone rang suddenly, jolting me. I picked it up. Silence. Then a whisper. You should have given me the letter. Angela's voice. I froze. My hand shook as I hung up. Through the kitchen window, I thought I saw movement in the shadows of the street. Watching. Waiting. Angela wasn't going to play games anymore. The whisper still rang in my ear long after I slammed the phone down. You should have given me the letter. Angela's voice had slithered through the line, smooth and cold, the way a snake might coil around the heart before the bite. I stood frozen in my small kitchen, the ticking clock suddenly louder than ever. Outside, the street lamp flickered. I thought I saw the outline of a figure lingering across the road, barely visible in the dark. Watching. My fingers brushed over the letter again. My father's words were both a comfort and a wound. He had known the danger, he had tried to protect me, but why in secret? Why had he trusted Angela enough to leave her with this envelope, only for her to steal it away? I pressed the letter to my chest, as if his words could shield me from the storm I felt coming. That night, sleep wouldn't come. My apartment felt too small, too fragile. Every creak in the pipe sounded like footsteps. Every shadow against the wall threatened to become Angela herself. I sat at the kitchen table until dawn, rereading the letter until the ink burned into my eyes. There is something hidden. You will know it when you see it. What had he hidden? My father had been a man of habit, but also a man of puzzles. He never left things unguarded. Even when I was a child, he'd tuck clues into books for me, little riddles that would lead to treasures, a pressed flower, a chocolate coin, a single silver key. He loved secrets, but only when the discovery meant learning something valuable. Now, he had left me one last riddle. The following morning, I went to his old study. The house was still sealed, waiting for the estate to be divided, but I had my own key. Walking through the door was like stepping into his presence again. The air smelled of leather and cedar. Dust floated in the sunlight slicing through tall windows. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes he had collected over decades. His desk sat in the center, polished but cluttered, papers, fountain pens, old glasses. My hand trembled as I touched the surface, half expecting him to scold me for making a mess. I searched for hours, opening drawers, leafing through books, lifting carpets. Nothing. Just dust and memories. Then, almost by accident, I knocked over a Bible resting on a shelf. It fell open, pages fluttering. And there it was. A small folded paper tucked between psalms. My heart nearly stopped. I reached for it slowly, unfolding with care. In my father's hand. If you doubt what I say, go to St. Mary's Cemetery. Find the stone with no name. There lies the truth they fear. I gasped, the room spinning. A cemetery. A nameless stone. What truth had he hidden there? I shoved the paper into my pocket and hurried out. But when I reached the front door, I froze. Angela's car was parked across the street. She sat inside, sunglasses on, her hand resting against her chin. Even through tinted glass, I felt her eyes on me. So it was true. She had been watching. I forced myself to walk calmly, locking the door behind me. My pulse hammered, but I didn't run. If I showed fear, she would win. As I passed her car, I felt the weight of her gaze. Neither of us spoke. But the silence screamed louder than words. I didn't go to the cemetery immediately. I couldn't lead her there. Instead, I wandered through the park, pretending to take a walk. Children laughed on swings, old men played chess on stone tables, and mothers sipped coffee on benches. Life continued, oblivious to the war I was now fighting. I sat on a bench and tried to breathe. Angela was capable of more than cruelty, she was capable of erasing me. The homeless man's warning echoed again. She wants your grave dug next to your father's. It no longer felt like metaphor. Later that afternoon, I finally slipped away, taking a bus instead of my car, circling streets until I was sure I hadn't been followed. St. Mary's Cemetery was quiet, tucked on the edge of town. The iron gates creaked as I pushed them open. Rows of stones stretched before me, each telling its own story. Some were grand, carved angels stretching toward the sky. Others were simple, worn down by rain and time. I searched slowly, reading each one. Hours passed. My legs ached, my eyes blurred. And then, I saw it. A stone with no name. Smooth, gray, blank. Forgotten. My breath caught. This was it. I knelt before it, pressing my hand against the cold surface. Father, what did you hide here? I whispered. I searched the ground, brushing away leaves and dirt. At the base of the stone, my fingers struck something hard. I dug, nails breaking, until I uncovered a small metal box, rusted but intact. Hands trembling, I pried it open. Inside was a stack of papers, yellowed but legible. And as I skimmed the words, the blood drained from my face. They weren't just papers. They were records of debts, contracts, and names, all tied to my brother Michael. Gambling debts, owed not to banks but to men with dangerous reputations. And Angela's signature appeared more than once, co-signing, transferring funds, manipulating accounts. Worse still, there were photographs. Angela with men I didn't recognize, slipping envelopes into their hands. Documents signed in secret. Proof she had been plotting for years. My father had hidden the evidence, burying it under a nameless stone. And now it was in my hands. A sharp noise behind me made me jump. I turned, heart racing. Angela stood there, her white dress almost glowing against the gravestones. She didn't look like a grieving widow-in-law. She looked like a predator. "So," she said softly, stepping closer. "You found it." I clutched the box to my chest. "How did you?" She smiled. "You really think you're clever? You're predictable. Just like your father." Her heels crunched against the gravel as she came nearer. "Hand it over. That doesn't belong to you." My voice shook, but I forced the words out. "It was buried for a reason. He didn't trust you." Her eyes blazed, but her smile remained. "And do you think anyone will believe you? The lonely daughter, the quiet one, suddenly claiming to have found evidence? Please. I've spent years building my reputation. You're just invisible." Tears stung my eyes, but I stood my ground. "Not anymore." Her smile faltered. For the first time, she saw it, the fire in me, the one she thought she had smothered years ago. We stood there in the silence of the cemetery, two women facing each other across the grave of truth. Angela's voice dropped to a hiss. "You don't understand the people Michael owes. If they don't get their money, they'll come for all of us. That fortune is the only way out." I gripped the box tighter. "Then maybe you should have thought of that before you gambled with everything." Her mask shattered. For a moment, raw rage twisted her face. Then she lunged. I stumbled back, clutching the box, my back hitting the nameless stone. Her hand clawed at my coat, nails digging into my skin. "Give it to me," she screamed. But I shoved her away with all the strength I had. She staggered, heels slipping on the damp grass. For a terrifying second, she teetered on the edge of an open grave left by workers. Then she caught her balance, eyes wild. "This isn't over," she spat, straightening her dress. "Not by a long shot." She stormed off, heels striking like gunshots. I collapsed to my knees, gasping. The box was still in my arms, heavy with the weight of my father's truth. And for the first time, I realized, this wasn't just about inheritance. This was about survival. That night, back in my apartment, I spread the papers across the table. Each page revealed more of Angela's schemes, more of Michael's debts. I saw names of dangerous men, places I dared not imagine. And then, at the very bottom of the stack, I found something I hadn't expected. A sealed envelope, addressed not to me, but to the lawyer. On the back, in my father's shaky handwriting, were 4 words that made my breath catch. "Open only if betrayed." The envelope shook in my hands. 4 words from my father stared up at me, written in the kind of shaky but deliberate script that always carried weight: "Open only if betrayed." The word betrayed echoed in my mind like a bell. Angela had stolen my letter. She had lunged at me in the cemetery. She had called to threaten me in the night. The betrayal had already happened. My father had known it would. I slipped the envelope into my bag, heart pounding. This wasn't just paper. It was my father's last shield for me, hidden for the exact moment Angela showed her teeth. That night, I couldn't sleep. I turned my kitchen into a battlefield. Every paper from the box at the cemetery, contracts, receipts, photographs, transfers, was spread across the table. Each page was a shard of Angela's mask, proof that she wasn't just cruel but calculating. Michael's debts, dangerous men, envelopes in shadows. My father had uncovered it all. I made copies at an all-night print shop. 3 sets. One hidden in a bread tin behind jars of rice in my kitchen. Another in a bank's safe deposit box. The third, I handed to Mrs. Callahan, the retired teacher at the community center where I sometimes volunteered. "If you don't hear from me by Sunday," I told her, "deliver this to the district attorney." Her eyes narrowed behind thick glasses. "Consider it done. Twice if I have to." The next morning, I carried the sealed envelope to the lawyer's office. He was waiting in his tweed jacket, a man who had known my father well. I set the envelope on the table. He read the words on the back: open only if betrayed, and paled slightly. With careful hands, he opened it. His eyes darted line to line. His jaw clenched. When he finished, he looked at me as though my father had just spoken through him. "Your father gave me instructions," he said. "If there's coercion, I must freeze the estate, order a forensic audit, and ensure you have police protection if needed. Also, any funds tied to fraud will go to a foundation in your name. Widows and elderly caregivers." That was his wish. A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. Father hadn't just tried to protect me. He had turned the poison into medicine. "Do it," I said. My voice was steady. He slid a form to me. I signed. And just like that, Angela's plan fractured. The news spread faster than fire in dry grass. My phone lit up with calls and messages. Cousins demanding explanations. Michael leaving voicemails that swung between fury and desperation. Angela, of course, was silent. Silence was her weapon. That afternoon, the lawyer called. "Angela has requested a meeting tomorrow at 10, he said. "A court officer will be present. Bring copies only. And prepare yourself." That night, 3 knocks echoed at my door. Then 2 more. Michael's rhythm. I opened with the chain still on. He looked wrecked, jacket wrinkled, hair uncombed, eyes darting like he expected shadows to attack him. "Angela wants you at the cafe at 8, he whispered. "She'll try to corner you before the official meeting. Don't go." "Why warn me?" I asked. His eyes glistened with a shame I had never seen in him. "Because I'm tired of being her pawn. And because I remember when you used to carry me home after school fights." My chest tightened. For a second, I saw my brother, the boy he once was, beneath the man bent by debts. "Then come to the 10 o'clock meeting," I said. "Sit beside me, not behind her." He hesitated. "That will cost me." "There's always a price," I said. "Choose the one you can live with." He nodded once. "Lock your door," he murmured, and disappeared. The morning of the meeting, I passed the cafe. Through the window, I saw Angela with 2 cousins and her polished friend from the country club. Papers lay on the table like bait. She smiled like a queen offering crumbs to pigeons. I didn't go in. I snapped a photo from the sidewalk and sent it to the lawyer. "She's staging a side deal." At 10 sharp, I walked into the official conference room. Sunlight spilled across the table like a spotlight. The lawyer sat ready. The court officer, a stern woman with gray hair pulled tight, stood by the door. Angela swept in at the last minute, perfume first. She wore a cream dress and her smile sharpened like a blade. "This is unnecessary," she said, sliding a paper across the table. A simple statement. No undue influence. We all sign, and we save ourselves trouble. The trap was obvious. I didn't touch the pen. Instead, I pulled a photograph from my bag and slid it to the center of the table. Angela, caught in the glow of a street lamp, handing an envelope to a tattooed man. Date stamped. The room fell silent. Angela didn't blink. Photos can be staged. I placed another paper, a transfer slip for the exact amount, her signature unmistakable. Then a third, a transcript from a prepaid phone arranging the meeting. And finally, my father's notarized letter establishing the charitable foundation and demanding the audit. Angela's mask cracked. Just for a second. Her smile faltered, then returned, thinner than glass. Michael shifted beside me. For the first time, he said it aloud, "I'll cooperate." Angela turned on him, fury sparking in her eyes. But with the court officer present, she couldn't explode. "This is a family matter," she snapped. "Fraud is a legal matter," the officer replied firmly. The lawyer leaned forward. "Given this evidence, the forensic process begins today. And Angela, any attempt to contact or intimidate my client will be reported to authorities." Angela stood abruptly, smoothing her dress. You think this is over? Paper doesn't protect you. Power does. And power answers at midnight. I met her eyes, my voice steady. Then stop calling midnight. I live in daylight now. She left in a storm of perfume and heels. When the door closed, the lawyer exhaled, the officer took notes, and Michael lowered his head into his hands. My phone buzzed. A new message, from an unknown number, nice photo. Shame if the subject doesn't make it to the audit. I showed it to the officer. Her jaw tightened. We'll arrange patrol cars outside your home tonight. Almost instantly, another buzz. This time from Cal, the ragged man who had first warned me. Gray sedan is parked on your street again. Wind says you're not alone. I clutched my scarf tighter around my neck, hearing my father's voice in every rustle of fabric. If the wolves circle. The wolves were circling. But for the first time, I was ready. The patrol car parked outside my building that night was both a comfort and a warning. Comfort, because I knew someone was watching. Warning, because the kind of people Angela and Michael were tangled with didn't fear uniforms. I brewed chamomile tea and tried to calm my hands. The papers were locked away, the copies safe, but the threat in that anonymous message still clung to me. Nice photo. Shame if the subject doesn't make it to the audit. The subject wasn't Angela. It was me. Around midnight, I heard a sound that made my blood ice, footsteps in the stairwell, slow and deliberate. Not neighbors, not casual. Then, a knock. Not Michael's rhythm, not the officer's professional tap. Heavy. 3 beats, each one shaking the wood. I froze. The officer stationed outside must have heard it too, because a voice boomed through the door, police. Identify yourself. Silence. Then hurried steps fading down the stairs. I opened the door a crack and saw the officer already chasing after them, his hand on his radio. Stay inside, he barked as he disappeared down the stairwell. I shut the door fast, locked every bolt, and leaned against it, my breath shaking. Whoever it was, they had come this far without fear. And Angela? She was silent again. Too silent. By morning, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. I forced myself into the shower, into fresh clothes, into my mother's scarf, my armor. At 10, the lawyer called. The audit team begins work today. Angela's accounts will be combed thoroughly. Expect resistance. Resistance I can handle, I said. Surprises, less so. Then brace yourself. With debts this size, creditors don't just send letters. They send people. The warning proved true that same afternoon. I left the bakery with a loaf of bread tucked under my arm. The air smelled of yeast and cinnamon, the ordinary sweetness of life. For a brief second, I almost felt normal. Then a man stepped into my path. Tall, leather jacket, scar tracing down his cheek. His smile was too calm. Afternoon, he said. Lovely day for errands. Another man appeared at my back, younger, eyes restless. My pulse hammered. Excuse me, I said, trying to walk around. The tall one shifted to block me. We're friends of Michael. He owes some folks, and we're here to collect, from the family. Fear prickled my skin, but my father's voice echoed in me, courage. You'll have to wait for the audit, I said. Everything's frozen. The scarred man chuckled. Audits are for bankers. We're faster. The younger one leaned close, his breath sour. You don't want accidents in your building, do you? My knees trembled, but I forced myself to stand tall. If you touch me, every piece of evidence I have will go to the police immediately. Half the city already has copies. It was a bluff, well, partly. I had spread the evidence carefully, but not as widely as they imagined. Still, they didn't know that. The tall one tilted his head, studying me. Then, slowly, he smiled. Smart woman. Dangerous, too. He stepped aside. We'll be in touch. They melted into the street crowd, casual as ghosts. I rushed home, locking the door with shaking hands. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Pretty scarf. Careful not to stain it. They had been watching. That evening, Michael showed up again, pale and thinner than before. They came to me too, he said, voice cracking. They don't bluff. You need to leave town until this blows over. And abandon father's fight? No. You don't understand, he pleaded. Angela has more allies than you think. Some of them don't even care about the money, they care about control. If you humiliate her, she'll drag you down with her. I stared at him. Then stand with me. Not with her. He shook his head, torn apart inside. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Then borrow my strength, I said quietly. For a second, he looked like the brother I once knew. But fear dragged his eyes away. 2 days later, the audit revealed its first treasure, hidden accounts under Angela's maiden name, transfers offshore, shell companies. The lawyer called with the details. She's trapped, he said. And she knows it. Which means she'll lash out. And lash out she did. That evening, as I returned home, I found my apartment door ajar. My heart froze. Inside, drawers were open, cushions slashed, papers scattered. Someone had searched everything. The bread tin was overturned on the floor, but the original documents were gone. I almost collapsed, until I remembered. The real copies, the important ones, were still safe at the bank and with Mrs. Callahan. Angela thought she had destroyed me. She had no idea I was 3 steps ahead. The next morning, at the courthouse, Angela arrived dressed like victory itself, emerald dress, diamond earrings, lips painted red. She walked in as if nothing could touch her. But when the lawyer presented the evidence of her hidden accounts, her painted smile trembled. Just a fraction. Enough for me to see the mask slipping. Forgery, she hissed. Not according to the bank statements, the auditor replied. Michael stared at the table, silent. Angela leaned toward me, whispering so only I could hear, "You think you've won. But you'll never sleep safely again." I turned my head and whispered back, "Sleep is for the innocent. Start practicing." Her eyes darkened, but she said nothing more. That night, as I lit a candle in my kitchen, I thought of Father. His hands guiding mine on piano keys when I was little. His voice teaching me to read contracts carefully. His stern warnings about trust. He had left me more than money. He had left me the strength to stand against a storm. And Angela, for all her beauty and venom, had nothing left but fear. The rain stopped just as I stepped outside. The courthouse loomed like a stern guardian, its stone walls still slick with the storm. I adjusted my scarf and walked inside, each footstep echoing with the weight of months of fear, humiliation, and revelation. This was the day everything would come to its close. Angela was already there. She stood near the window, emerald dress shimmering faintly under the gray light, her pearl earrings swinging like weapons. She wasn't smiling today. Not her practiced, cutting smile. She looked pale, tense, coiled like a snake ready to strike. Michael sat 2 chairs away, hands folded, eyes on the floor. For the first time in years, he looked smaller than me, not in age, not in height, but in spirit. The lawyer whispered in my ear as I entered. The judge has everything. The audit uncovered the shell companies, the transfers, even the prepaid accounts. It's overwhelming. Then why does my stomach feel empty? I murmured back. Because truth is heavy, but it takes time to settle, he replied. When the judge entered, silence fell. He was a tall man with tired eyes, but his voice was firm. The court officer handed him a thick folder, Angela's life in pages. The auditor spoke first, steady as stone. Multiple offshore accounts. Transfers timed with gambling debts. Fraudulent contracts co-signed by Angela. Angela's attorney objected, tried to explain. tried to paint her as a loyal wife dragged into her husband's chaos. But the papers didn't lie, and the photos spoke louder than his polished words. Then the lawyer placed the final letter on the table. My father's voice, captured in ink, any money tied to coercion must go to the foundation in my daughter's name, to serve widows and elderly caregivers. The judge read the words twice before looking up. His voice was low but clear. This estate is frozen pending full redistribution. All fraudulent assets are seized. The foundation shall be established immediately. Furthermore, evidence is hereby referred to the district attorney for prosecution. Angela's face drained of color. Her pearl earrings trembled as her jaw tightened. Your passport, the judge added, is to be surrendered today. Angela tried to stand tall, but her knees wavered. Her eyes found mine, blazing with fury, but beneath it, I saw fear. Outside the courtroom, the air buzzed with whispers. Cousins muttered about money lost. Journalists scribbled. And Michael, he came to me quietly, like a man stepping into church with guilt pressed against his chest. I gave them everything, he said. His voice cracked. The names, the calls, the debts. They'll come for me, but maybe this time I'll stop running. You don't have to run anymore, I said softly. But you have to walk every step yourself. He nodded, and for the first time in decades, his eyes looked clear. Angela wasn't finished, of course. That evening, I returned to my apartment to find my door ajar. Drawers pulled out, cushions slashed, papers scattered. Someone had searched every corner. But the bread tin was empty. The originals gone. For a moment, panic clenched my throat. Then I remembered, the true copies were safe at the bank, at the lawyer's office, and with Mrs. Callahan. Angela thought she had one. She hadn't even touched the real truth. I laughed out loud, the sound bitter but freeing. For once, she had stolen nothing from me. Days turned into weeks. The district attorney pressed charges: fraud, conspiracy, coercion. Angela walked into court in a gray suit that dulled her beauty, her smile replaced with silence. Cameras flashed. She pleaded not guilty, of course. But evidence doesn't care about beauty, and witnesses don't fade with perfume. Michael testified. He admitted his debts, his blindness, his complicity. He didn't excuse himself. For once, he told the truth. Angela glared at him the entire time. But her power was gone. When the case ended, the judge approved the foundation. My father's wish, in ink, became brick and glass. We rented a modest building near the community center, nothing grand, just solid. A sign above the door read, "The Open Door Foundation." Inside, we placed 2 desks, a second-hand sofa, and shelves that would fill slowly with files and stories. We started small: a voucher for groceries, a check for rent to keep a widow from losing her apartment, a pair of sturdy shoes for a caregiver who walked miles each day. Mrs. Callahan ran the front desk like a general, her glasses perched low, her pen ready. She treated every woman who walked through the door as if they had carried kingdoms on their backs. And Cal, dear Cal, became our quiet guardian. He knew where to look, who needed help but wouldn't ask, which corners held stories in shadows. Invisible people, he told me, are only invisible because no one stands close enough. He made them visible again. Michael came too. Not for money, not for pity. He carried boxes, made coffee, listened to stories. Some days he shook. Some days he laughed. He kept going to meetings. He kept choosing the harder door. One afternoon, an old woman in a faded blue coat entered, clutching a hymn book under her arm. She smiled at me. "Your father once fixed the rack on my pew," she said. "He told me things shouldn't wobble when people lean on them." He was right. I felt my throat close. "That's exactly what we're trying to build here," I whispered. "Then lean steady," she said, patting my hand. Angela eventually took a plea. Not because she wanted redemption, but because evidence left her no choice. She avoided prison with probation, restitution, and a lifetime ban from managing finances. But she was stripped of her crown. Her wealth gone, her reputation broken, her allies vanished like mist in sunlight. The woman who once stood above me at family dinners, dripping venom in silk and pearls, now folded church bulletins for community service hours, her nails chipped, her perfume replaced with disinfectant. I didn't rejoice. I didn't need to. Justice had spoken in its own voice. Months later, I returned to St. Mary's Cemetery with a bouquet of daisies. I knelt at the nameless stone where Father had hidden the truth. "We did it," I whispered. "Your puzzle worked. And the money will serve women who deserve peace." The wind stirred, carrying the scent of grass and stone. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. Angela's plan had been simple: bury me with Father, silence me, erase me. Instead, she buried herself under her own lies. I walked away from that grave not as the quiet, invisible daughter, but as a woman who had stood against wolves and survived. And I knew, with every step, that dignity is not something you're given. It's something you take back, one truth at a time.